Someone in your life has gone quiet on you. Not angry quiet. Not busy quiet. A specific kind of quiet, where they answer in short sentences, where the warmth is gone, where you feel like you're talking to a wall instead of a person. You've probably told yourself it's nothing. You've probably made excuses for them. But Carl Jung would tell you something different. He would tell you that silence, deployed a certain way, is not the absence of communication. It is communication. It might be the most aggressive thing a person can do to you without ever raising their voice. Jung spent decades studying what he called the shadow, the parts of ourselves we refuse to look at, the impulses we consider too ugly to admit we have. Anger. Jealousy. The desire to punish someone. Most people believe they don't have these impulses, because they never act on them in obvious ways. They don't yell. They don't throw things. They don't say a cruel word. Instead, the shadow finds a quieter outlet. It withdraws. It goes cold. And because there's no shouting, no slammed door, the person doing it can tell themselves, and everyone around them, that they've done nothing wrong at all. In this video, you're going to learn how to recognize the silent treatment for what it actually is, why it works on the human brain the way it does, and what Jung believed it reveals about the person using it, not about you. Let's start with the first thing you need to understand: silence hurts the brain the same way physical pain does. This isn't a metaphor. When you're deliberately excluded or ignored by someone you're close to, the same regions of your brain that process a broken bone or a burn light up. Your nervous system doesn't distinguish between social rejection and physical injury. It just registers threat. So when someone goes quiet on you, really quiet, the kind with an edge to it, your body reacts before your mind has a chance to reason it out. You feel your chest tighten. You start replaying the last conversation, hunting for what you did wrong. This is not weakness on your part. This is biology. And the person doing it, whether they admit it to themselves or not, is relying on exactly that reaction. Here's the second thing. There's a difference between someone who needs space and someone who is punishing you with distance. Needing space looks like this: I need a little time to think, I'll talk to you later. It's stated. It has an edge of care in it, even if it's uncomfortable to hear. Punishing silence looks completely different. It has no explanation attached. It's designed to make you guess. It often gets colder the more you try to repair it, not warmer. And it tends to lift the instant you stop chasing it, which tells you everything about its real purpose. It was never about needing time. It was about needing control. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable, because this is where Jung's ideas cut close to home for almost everyone watching. Jung believed that people rarely do things they consider morally acceptable to themselves through direct aggression. If a part of you wants to hurt someone, but your image of yourself is a kind person who would never do that, your mind has to find a workaround. Silence is one of the most effective workarounds ever invented. It doesn't feel like an attack, even to the person doing it. It feels like restraint. It feels like taking the high road. That is exactly why it's so hard to call out, because on the surface, nothing has technically been done wrong. No cruel words were spoken. Nothing can be pointed to as proof. But stay with me here, because there's something even stranger going on underneath this, something about why this particular tactic works so well on people who are thoughtful, self-aware, and hard on themselves. We'll come back to that in a few minutes, because it's the piece that actually explains why some people fall for this pattern again and again while others walk away from it the first time it happens. Let's move to the third point, because this is where you start to see the pattern in your own life, if it's there. Watch what happens after the silence ends. Some people, once they've cooled off, come back and explain themselves. I was upset because of this, I needed time, I'm sorry it went on so long. That's a person managing their emotions like an adult. But there's another type. The silence lifts, and they act like nothing happened at all. No explanation. No acknowledgement that you spent days anxious and confused. They simply resume as if the freeze never occurred, and if you bring it up, you're accused of making a big deal out of nothing or overthinking again. This is one of the clearest signs Jung's framework points to. The goal was never resolution. The goal was to watch you struggle, and then to reward you with warmth once you've been sufficiently unsettled. It teaches you, without a single word, that their affection is conditional, and that you'd better not upset them again. Fourth, notice who the silence is used on. This detail matters more than people realize. The same person who goes cold and unreachable with you might be perfectly warm, talkative, even charming with someone else in the very same week. That's not a coincidence, and it's not really about mood. Jung would say this points to something almost clinical about the behavior. It's not an emotional overflow they can't control, because if it were, it would show up everywhere, with everyone. Instead, it's selective. It's aimed. It's used specifically where it's known to have the most effect, on the person most likely to feel it and most likely to come chasing after an explanation. That selectivity is the tell. Now let's go back to that open loop, because this is the part most people never stop to ask about. Why does this tactic work so devastatingly well on exactly the kind of person who least deserves to be treated this way? The self-aware ones. The ones who reflect, who apologize first, who are constantly checking their own behavior for flaws. You'd think emotional intelligence would make someone immune to this kind of manipulation. It's the opposite. Jung's work on the shadow suggests a reason. The people most likely to spiral into self-blame during someone else's silence are the ones who have already spent years believing that if something is wrong, it's probably their fault. They were taught, somewhere, by someone, that love has to be earned through vigilance, through being good enough, quiet enough, easy enough. So when the silence hits, their mind doesn't ask, what is this person doing to me? It asks, what did I do? And that question is exactly what keeps them locked in the cycle, apologizing for things they never did, walking on eggshells around someone who has learned that withdrawal is the fastest way to bring them to heal. This is the climax of everything we've covered, so listen closely, because this is the insight that changes how you'll see this pattern from now on. The silent treatment is not primarily a reaction to something you did. It is a bid for power, dressed up as an emotional wound. It survives because it looks like hurt instead of strategy. Jung would say the person deploying it is often not even consciously aware that's what they're doing. Their shadow has found a socially acceptable disguise for a very old, very human impulse, the need to feel in control when they feel powerless in some other part of their life. That's the real target of the behavior. Not you specifically. Your reaction. Your anxiety. Your willingness to chase, to apologize, to shrink yourself to restore the peace. Once you see that the silence is a performance for an audience of one, it stops working the same way on your nervous system. You stop asking, what did I do wrong, and you start asking, what is this actually accomplishing for them? So here's what to take with you. The next time someone you love goes cold without explanation, don't rush to fill the silence with your own guilt. Notice whether it's stated or punishing. Notice whether it ends with an explanation or with pretending nothing happened. Notice who else gets to see their warmth. You don't have to accuse anyone of anything. You just have to stop supplying the reaction the silence was built to extract. If this gave you a new way of understanding someone in your life, tell us in the comments who came to mind. You don't have to name them, just tell us what the silence looked like. And if this resonated, there's another video on our channel about the specific type of person Jung believed uses control instead of communication as their default language. Subscribe, and we'll see you there.